Good morning. It is a Hodge Podge on this Tuesday, June 30th, our final day of June 2020. And we always enjoy having this guest with us on Hodge Podge today, Kelly Blackledge. Hey, Kelly, how are you this morning?
Good morning. It's
Kelly.
A great morning.
It is a great morning. Kelly's with the Tamarac National Wildlife Refuge. Kelly, it's a beautiful day. Going to be a little bit warm out. All kinds of cool things. We are right smack dab in the middle of what's been kind of an interesting summer, but really hasn't stopped things out of Tamarac. What do you guys got going on out there?
That's right. You know, this is a great time to really look at your surroundings. When you can't go everywhere, you can go to Tamarac. So, yeah, it's a great place to kind of reconnect with nature and find some solace and some healing out in nature by traveling through the refuge. We have lots to see out there. There have been some great sightings. Even people's backyards, I've been hearing about how people are seeing a lot more wildlife. They're spending time in their backyards to explore what's really happening out there. So it's kind of fun to hear all those stories.
Kelly, one thing, a lot of ducks and ducklings out and goose and goslings this time of the year. Bears are also out of hibernation as we hit the summertime. A lot of stuff to go out and if you're a wildlife observer and you just want to go out and see things, now is a great time of the year to be out in the wild, in the great outdoors, and see all that Mother Nature has to offer.
You know, June is typically bear breeding season, so that kind of gets the bears out and about, moving around a lot. And we've had a lot more sightings over the past few years. I know a lot of people have seen bears in their backyards, kind of tackling feeders and things like that, but you can certainly see them out on the refuge as well. There's been several sightings on the wildlife drive and all times of day. I mean, typically bears will come out at night, or you might see them really early in the morning, but you can see them at 1 o'clock in the afternoon too. So it's kind of a neat drive to take to watch out for bears or remnants of bears. Watch out for that too on the trails. You never know what you might step in. That might be kind of cool. So bears are a good sighting. And then, yeah, there's a lot of ducks that are rearing their young and out and about on hot days. They're out where you can see them a little bit more. Typically, they're in the vegetation where they're kind of hiding in the grass and the reeds and such. So they're a little harder to see. But along the wildlife drive on Blackbird Lake and even around Pine Lake, we've had mergansers and the little merganser ducklings that you can see out there. There's been wood ducks and, of course, mallards. Mallards are getting pretty big right now.
They are.
Those little guys aren't so little anymore. And I love that weird, awkward teenage stage like the goslings are in right now. They kind of look like little dinosaurs or something. I don't know. They're pretty awkward at that age. And then, of course, trying to grow these feathers that yeah, it must just be weird for them.
I was on vacation a couple of weeks ago, and we were up in northern Minnesota, and saw a pair of loons that had a little tiny baby loon on the back of the mother. And normally, you don't see those baby loons when they're quite that small. I mean, this thing looked like a chicken. I mean, this was just a tiny little black spot. And the mother was very calm right next to the boat. We saw her, so we slowed down and shut the motor off and just kind of watched as we cruised by. And then the other side of that matching pair was not far away. I'm guessing that was the dad.
Oh.
Not far away. And he kind of looked at the boat like, hey, come on, give the woman some space. She's got an infant on her back. But this time of the season is the time to get out there. And, you talked about ducks and geese and goslings and ducklings. If you've ever had the unfortune of running across an angry mother goose, if you get too close. Now, if you golf a lot and you're on the golf courses, they kind of look like this. They like to hiss, they like to flap those wings, and they can be not only scary, but downright intimidating.
Yes. Yeah, who knew a 2-foot creature could scare the heck out of you like that?
I'm a grown man with a golf club, and I'm like, whoa, I'm backing up.
Yeah, that hiss is really something. Wow.
They can be aggressive.
that come out of a bird. It's just kind of odd. And
One
right
thing
now,
yeah.
is loon, tern, and grebe survey season. So the Minnesota DNR volunteers are out in all of the marshes and wetlands, and they're counting those loon chicks that you saw to get a better idea on how we're doing in terms of producing loons in Minnesota. So they're taking a look at, so if you see people in kayaks out in strange marshes that you never see anybody with binoculars, why, that's the loon, tern, and grebe survey. So they're also looking at terns, you know, so these are the birds that you see kind of shuffling over the, flying at high speeds across the water, it seems like. And then also grebes. We have a few different kinds of grebes in this neck of the woods, so they're keeping track of those. And I know the ones that do the ponds on the refuge are also looking at trumpeter swan nests and counting cygnets, the little baby swans as well. So again, just trying to get an idea of how many, you know, that production of birds that we have in our area, make sure it's healthy.
Kelly, another thing we want to talk about here this morning is the osprey. And if you've never had the opportunity to see an osprey hunt in person, I've seen it. I've got a place on Mille Lacs, and it's quite common to see these things just come right straight. They fold their wings up and tuck down in. It looks like somebody shot a missile out of a cloud. And they go right straight down into the water. The next thing you know, after the splash, the wings come up, and there's usually a northern or some fish laying underneath in the talons. But ospreys, when they feed, one of the most spectacular sights that Mother Nature has to offer.
Isn't it? Yeah, and of course they're nesting right now. They're still feeding their young in the nest. So if you are near an area where you can see osprey nests, they'll have 1, 2, 3 young ones in their nest. So they're doing a lot of fishing right now to keep those big birds, big babies, well fed. I know around in front of like the Holiday Inn area, like at 5 o'clock happy hour, there was always like an osprey that would come like on cue to fish right in front there, which is kind of fun. So yeah, you'll see them fishing throughout the day. And the osprey will, you know, osprey have that line across their eyes. So to just differentiate between an eagle or something like that, that's also fishing. And then, so next time you watch them fish, you have to watch to see how they hold that fish when they're flying. Because I just think that's fascinating. They don't just pick it up, but they hold it so that it's, so that streamline with them in flight. So that's kind of unique about the osprey when they're out there fishing.
It's kind of funny because I get an opportunity to watch both eagles and ospreys feed at many of the lake places. And eagle's a little bit different. Eagle will take a look and he'll circle around until he spots that prey and then cruises right across the water, and those talons just come down and the eagle keeps going. But those ospreys, man, they like to go right in the drink.
Dive, yeah.
For it. Summertime, Kelly, is also a beautiful time to be out checking out wildflowers this time. Tell us about what we should be looking for.
Right. So we're just finishing up that orchid season. So the showy lady slippers, the yellow lady slippers are kind of at their end of the bloom cycle right now. So you can still find a few that are blooming. So if you haven't gotten your favorite photo of a showy lady slipper, our state flower, they're still blooming. But there's a lot of other things starting to pop up now too. That wild geranium is blooming. It's kind of a blue flower, bluish purple like flower. The Indian paintbrush is blooming. And I just love how that flower it's kind of an orangish red, but it is almost fluorescent. It is so pretty when you really get up next to it to look at that color. I don't know how that happens, but something about the sunlight that's reflecting off the plant, it's just amazing how pretty that is. And then you'll start seeing some of our daisies, family of flowers, black-eyed Susans, and flowers like that. The daisy-like flowers are really starting to pop out as well. You can still see Canada anemone blooming. That's the white one along the roadsides. That's still blooming. There's, I did see some blue flag iris that is still blooming out there. So beautiful colors. I always think around close to the 4th of July, that's when the red, white, and blues kind of come out. So between the Canada anemone and the irises, and that Indian paintbrush. We have a lot of red, white, and blue out there.
You know, with summertime here, invasive species are also in bloom. Kelly, what can folks look for out there, especially if they suffer from allergies?
Yeah, well, yeah, there's a lot of stuff starting to bloom in that realm as well. I think it's kind of, some of our invasives are really pretty, right? I think I've seen a few photos of orange hawkweed, yellow hawkweed, and wow, that's a really invasive plant. And I'm like, oh, don't just take a picture, pull it, you know? So it's hard to sometimes to know, because it's so pretty, what is invasive and what isn't. So the Minnesota Wildflower app is a great app to look up to see what you're looking at. You can find out the name of the flower and see whether or not it's invasive. But this is the time of year we start wanting to not let some of those invasives go to seed, and those that you can pull, to pull those so that they're not they don't go to seed, they stop blooming, you know.
Summertime is here. Kids, well, they were out of school in March, but they finished their social distance learning from home. Families are out and about. What's going on with summer activities out at the Refuge, Kelly?
Yeah, this is going to be kind of a crazy summer for activities. And the Friends of Tamarac have been doing Tamarac takeout packs since the Refuge Visitor Center is not open at this time. We don't expect that to be open through the summer months this year. So there's a lot of, so with those Tamarac takeout packs, families can hit the trails on the Refuge and take a hike. All of the trails are open. All of the fishing accesses are open. I know fishing is getting, it's not as, you know, the hotter it gets, the more they're not catching the crappies and such that they were earlier in the spring. The bluegills are done nesting, and so that activity is going down. Not that you can't still catch fish. And there are 5 lakes open on the Refuge for fishing. Tamarac Lake is a really popular fishing lake. And by the way, don't forget to comment on bluegills. The DNR is looking at reducing the bluegill catch per day.
The bag limit, yeah.
Yeah, if you get a chance, you want to make a comment on what you think about that. So
sounds good. Do you want to talk about Wild Wednesdays as well?
Sure, unless you want to do a mystery bird.
Let's do the mystery bird.
Let's do the mystery bird.
Let's go for it.
So this is always kind of fun. This one I actually heard the other day. This is kind of an interesting bird. It's one of those birds that you never really see. You just hear it, and then you're wondering, what is that? Is it a frog? What is that? So this bird is kind of medium size, smaller than a chicken. I don't know. Maybe you can relate. It's like football size, right in there.
All right.
So here's the mystery sound. Did you catch that?
Yeah, it's going to sound like a cricket.
Yeah, it does kind of sound like a cricket. It has that weird, but it's a bird. I swear, it's a bird.
Kelly, play that again if you can.
Have you ever heard that?
You know, I'm trying to think if I have, because I do spend quite a bit of time in the outdoors, and I'm not even gonna, I would venture a guess, but I don't even have a guess. Well, give me a clue. Can you give me another clue?
Okay. So this is a bird that hangs around the marsh area. It, if you do ever see it, it's got an orange beak.
Sandpiper.
Close.
Close?
Yeah. Oh, close. So this one is called the Virginia rail. Virginia rail. So in our area, we have, you know, you can see American bittern and some green herons and, you know, those kind of shore birds. This one is also hanging out pretty deep in the cattails and bulrush and such. We have one called a Sora that's also very similar, but the Virginia rail makes that riddick sound that's out there. And they have really strong legs. So kind of like a shorebird, their legs are kind of longer. but a good solid body as well. You know, bigger than a robin, but kind of around that size. And their legs are really strong for kind of breaking through those thick cattails and getting into the weeds a bit. They feed on the insects and crayfish and wormy things that, you know, we kind of go yuck when we see them in the marsh, but they love to eat those. So yeah, the Virginia rail, and they're pretty common, really. You know, we've got a lot of wetlands that have all kinds of vegetation, so there's good habitat for them in this area. So we do have quite a few Virginia rails.
Kelly, you mentioned the bittern. I've got an interesting story to tell you about a bittern. I'm probably the only guy in the state of Minnesota who's actually been physically attacked by a bittern. I was pheasant hunting in the fall and was walking through our CRP land and came across, and normally, and this is in southern Minnesota, down to the Minnesota-Iowa border, and we don't have a lot of bitterns down that part of the state. So walking across this nest in the fall, it scared me. The thing popped up and its head was back, and it started pecking at my knee. And I started backing up, and I'm like, what's wrong with this bird? Well, obviously it was in its nesting area. And I had come upon and infringed on its personal property. But in all my years of walking in the woods, I've never been attacked by a bittern. And I can tell you, those beaks are sharp, and when they pop you on the kneecap, it hurts. That's all I'm going to say. Kelly, before I let you go this morning, anything else you want to get out here today on Hodge Podge?
Yeah, so you mentioned Wild Wednesdays. Wild Wednesdays are kicking off July 1st. So this Wednesday, tomorrow, I guess, but tomorrow's July already.
It is.
Wild Wednesday is going to be a virtual Wild Wednesday, but the volunteers have some great videos, some good activities, some crafts to do. So you can follow us on Facebook and learn more about those activities. We're also kicking off Tales on the Trail. So again, follow us on Facebook and you'll learn about where those are. That's a interpretive section of a trail, and there will be a different one every week. So there will be different places you can explore, maybe some secret places that you haven't been before. And then just to let folks know, the Friends of Tamarac are not going to do Toast of Tamarac this year, but they are doing an online auction. So you can follow the Friends of Tamarac to learn more about that. And they do still have those Tamarac takeout packets. They have some neat new versions that they're coming up with. So you can learn more about that on their website or again on their Facebook or social media area. And I hope to see folks out on the refuge. This is a great time, summertime. If you can handle a few insects here and there, there are some places that you can go where the breeze is good and you can go for a hike and not be so bothered by the mosquitoes and flies that are kind of swarming us right now, right?
Sounds good. Kelly, take care. Enjoy the 4th of July. Be safe. And thanks for joining us here today on Hodge Podge.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Kelly Blackledge with us this morning from the